Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go.
Hi everyone. Today is December the 2nd. It is a Tuesday, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. My name is Anne-Marie Band. Charts are by TrendSpider, and gamma flows are by Menther Q. Now, I have something interesting up here. It is the heat map. I'll take it down for right now, but what the heat map does in TrendSpider is tell you where lots of volume is sitting. It's almost like an inventory box, if you want to put it that way. And so we can see where the major motion is and where they're trying to wick out and move while still collapsing in the range, and what happens when they get through the move, which is a tendency to will happen. They'll move into and through the space and then back down. That's what's going on right now. You can use the heat map on all time frames. Different heat maps will show up for different time frames, but it is a really nice tool to remind you about where the fight zone is. So, that being said, you look at the breakaways as areas that you can sort of have a runaway event, if you're so inclined, through the heavy lifting. All right? And so I find that to be also a really neat way to use the heat map. We'll be using that a little bit more in our midday studies for a certain number of things, talking to Benzinga Pro folks there. All right, so what have we got this morning? Well, we've got overnight inventory that was a little bit downward flow, and then they reversed that inventory. So now overnight inventory is long. It was short, and now it's long. If we stare down the entire formation, what we're going to see is that we're in some sort of wedge, right? You know, I don't like these trend lines to take trades on. They don't make sense to me, but the lines of congestion certainly do. And look at this pocket here. I think the pocket's pretty big, but there is a fairly important line that sits right around 6,825. We're caught between the anchored VWAP of, what is that? Friday, and the anchored VWAP of Monday. And those lines are 68.83 and 68.50 or so. Let's take a look at where the call walls are, right? Big call wall still at 7,000. Big put wall should still be at 6,500, yes. So they're leaving these really wide for any kind of volatility shock, whether it be a reduction in volatility or an expansion in volatility. And the value area high at 6,850 could give us a pretty nice breakout line. That's where we might look at the heat map and say, okay, if I had to widen the flow, we could see that the next heat map space takes us all the way up into 6,900 with a little bit of price action right at that 68.70, right? And so what we can see is that the breakout of this zone can send us easily up into these higher gamma walls, and the 0 DTE walls, as well as the 1-day max, that's pretty interesting, are up here at 68.88. I would say it's anywhere between 68.70 and 68.80. So That, if we break out, that's an upside target. 68.70, 68.80. Okay? Flows are, they're going to probably have an inventory correction in the morning into this area around 6,825. That's what we're going to stare down. 0 DTE put support is 67.84. And 0 DTE call resistance is 68.84. And so that's pretty interesting. We've got about 100 points of motion. That's a lot of points. Okay, so option flow is light. The domes have been thin. This is natural, okay? This is very natural for this time of year. This is not out of the ordinary at all. Okay, so pullbacks are going to be buy zones into resistance. ATR is showing us compression. We've got upside flow on momentum. So dips are buys. The line in the sand for where things might not go well if you're continually trying to buy the dip is 6,812. Okay, we get below there, things get a little dicey. My thought is below, if we stare down the heat map, this whole area tells us, hey, listen, we could be choppy all the way down into this zone simply because there's so much activity right there. All right, let's go to the NQ. And by right there, I mean between 68.20 and 68.30. Oops. Let's go to the NAS. All right. Not the same formation at all, actually. Inventory is long overnight in the NASDAQ. It's broken through the trend line that shows downward flow, and we still have dip buying, right? What we do see is that price action is sitting right at the call wall. Let's take a look at the heat map. Nothing there on the 30-minute. Let's go to the 4-hour. And nothing there. Ooh, interesting. So if our strategy on this heat map business is correct, then it should presume that we walk the clear areas up into the next red zone. And so target areas on the upside for the NQ look like the one-day max. That's 25,700. Does have upward flow, and that is provided that we get above the call wall. Okay, and that call wall is 25,500. That's been the call wall for a hot minute. It's also the big call wall and the 0 DTE call wall. It is the same. The 0 DTE put wall, 25,250. That's going to be our floor of support. We've had pretty jagged motion, right? Large range, 5. So about 250 points up and then down and then up again. This is a little bit of price compression, upward moving, rising higher lows. It's going to push us out. And so that wall also gives us the point of control or the VWAP. I can't tell from there. Let's get this out the way. So let's see what we're staring down. Dips or buys. Right? We can see them right here. We are very far away from the VWAP. We should have a little bit of inventory correction, right? Should have a little bit of inventory correction. And, yeah, Yeah, we could be sideways. You want to be careful. Don't just buy the top because it breaks out of here. It'll need a retest. But dips do look like they're buys. Where would that be? The anchored VWAP from Friday happens to be where today's VWAP is sitting. So that looks like a great zone to watch for inventory correction, right? The dynamic flow says we've got bullish action literally all the way down until 25,300. That's where the next strongest gamma line is sitting. Value area low, 25,267, and the 0DT put support 25,250. What looks like the most likely possibility is inventory correction. Watch for where that opening candle was, and a recovery of the anchored VWAP from Monday's close. So that's about 25,371, right? If you're looking to be really aggressive, if you think it's really going to run, you can try the long at 25,424. But because these wicks and candles are really extended, I expect inventory correction to pull back. 370, not unlikely. My thought, if it were me looking for this trade, I would be looking for a long against this trend line and watching for flows that savagely break and move to the north, right? So still dips or buys, but we're at the top of the range. And I suspect because order flow and option order flow is so light that we are likely to stay in between these boxes over the next few days. All right, let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. Still lollygagging around. Let's go to the 4-hour. Check out the heat map. Interesting. Okay, so if we are staring this down properly, here's our trend line, right? That's our 4-hour trend line. Every time the traders have made it to the trend line over the recent weeks, we've had ourselves a pretty solid breakdown, right? Sometimes we haven't even gotten to the trend line and the break has been there. So what is the storyboard? Is there a separate trend line that is not so dramatic? I don't know. Little bit messy. But what this does tell us is that it's trying to hold the floor. Notice it's holding a great deal of support at around 85,000, right? That's going to be a pretty nice buyback space. But every bounce has been selling. Every single bounce. Right? And so where are we now? We are underneath the 0DTE put wall. That is 90,000. We're underneath that wall. The big put floor is 75. I expect us to reach that floor before the end of the month. That's just my thought. Easily, I think we could go to 65. Well, I would not be surprised at all. But what we are staring down now is an attempt at a recovery, and because we're in between two heavy heat map lines, I would suspect dip buying all the way to 90,000 to get us back inside of the put wall, to get us back inside of the heat map, and then we either reject it at the call wall, which is 93,000, or we get into this pocket and we run all the way up to 102. I don't think that happens. Not at this stance. Okay? The great big call wall is still at 92,000. The 0 DTE call wall and the one-day max is sitting at, is that right? Yeah, is sitting at 93,000. What is overnight inventory doing? It is long, but look at all the inventory accumulation, right? If we can come back and hold that VWAP line at 87, those of us who like the long in Bitcoin, that's going to give us a shot at that trend line. Oh, for goodness sakes. Right? It's going to give us that shot right at that VWAP edge, 87. We can run it to 88, potentially 88.50, right? Yeah, very interesting. Let's go to oil. What I find to be remarkably interesting about what's going on with oil is that we have got so much geopolitical unrest, and oil is just caught in a box. I don't know what to make of that. We just have a tremendous amount of unrest right now. Yes, but Henry, the peace talks. You know, not my first rodeo watching what's happening, and I am a voracious reader of history. I absolutely love history. And we are entering a war zone. I mean, this is a war cycle. This is a war cycle. We just see it building. So, anyways, what are we going to stare down? Oil is sitting in these, it gets these lovely wedges off of this bottom trend line and tries to bounce. Here, small bounce. Here, much bigger bounce. But coming to the end of the road, right? So this is what we're staring down. What does the chart look like? Well, short, right? Here is the 0 DTE put wall at $69. The big call wall is at $60, $59. Did I say 69? $59. The call wall is at $60, and the 0 DTE call wall is at $61.30. So they're expecting a little bit of price expansion, but not a whole lot, right? So what does this storyboard tell us? If we look at this 4-hour and we go, all right, ever since the end of October, we've been in this wedge. Are we going to break to the north, or are we going to continue down in the wedge? And so that means we need to take a wider look at the broad markets, the broad dailies, and we can see that the trend is still sharply downward, but traders have been trying to hold this 57 number, right? Somewhere around 57. If you could get a long at 57, that would be a pretty nice looking trade. 57.26 really is the anchor for the motion. Let's take a look at, I bet this heat map looks atrocious. Oh, not too bad. Bottom here, if it falls out of this 59 area, the traction looks like 58.26. Don't know how long it'll take to get there because we are retracing the candles. We're sitting in a very big pocket right here. It could be very noisy. If it falls through, we're going to go to the next edge, right? That's been predefined in terms of volume. Let's see what the 30-minute looks like. A few stair steps. Here's the base here. It's trying to hold the anchored VWAP of Friday, and that is $59. Yeah, the traders are going to want to keep it between $60 and $59. All right, let's take a look at gold. All right, what do we have? A lot of people calling for new highs in gold. I certainly am not one of them, but the price action has been very stable, right? I mean, relatively. It's grinding up. So we're definitely in some sort of flag pattern, right? Moving to the upside. Inventory is correcting right now as we speak. Positive momentum. 0 DTE call wall has been breached once today. It's 42.50. 0 DTE put wall is above the call wall. Remember, that means only one of these guys is going to win today, right? The put support guys want price action to be above. The call resistance guys want price action to be below. And so right now, it's the call resistance guys that are in for the win. And so what are they trying to do? Move from this inventory box. This is the inventory event here that we left. And now it's coming to return to it and bouncing. So as long as we do not lose 4,200, the price action looks pretty bullish to me intraday. If we lose 4,200, it's got 30 points to the bottom of the box. Let's see where the heat map is. Whoa. Okay, 4-hour heat map. Very interesting. All the way down to here. Let's see what the 30... Yeah, there's not a lot of volume going on in here, folks. So rotation down into the 4,200 looks very likely to me. Very likely to me, particularly if we look at the 30-minute chart and we can see those lower highs and lower lows. So bounces or sell zones. This is very weird. Outsized typical volume by time of day. Let me change this number. Let's look back 15 days. Oh, didn't do it for me. Crud-sickles. Okay, hang on. Oh, they won't let us go back 15 days. That's why. Is 10 the max? About 7. Nope. Very interesting. All right, so heat maps definitely tell us we've got downside pressure, but, you know, we're seeing how well these heat maps work relatively speaking. 1-day minimum is 4,217. I think it's going to break that and head down into these lower levels here. Look at all this inventory sitting right here. Okay, so that's what we'll be after. The inventory boxes right down there. Okay, lastly, let's take a look at SPY. If we take a look at SPY, we are very range bound. I just realized my mic was very far away from me. Good heavens. Sideways formations. High, breakaway, 682. Low, breakdown, 678. Otherwise, we sit in the box. This one's pretty easy. All right, everyone, take care, and I'll see you on the streams.